crossed the threshold into divorce, you know, you've given up, in a sense. I mean, you can say it like that. You concede defeat.
There is a part of me that still believes it was destined to continue. It should have. It should have, but didn't, for a whole raft of reasons.
It's Christmas time, a time to celebrate family, a time of reunions. This year my parents, long divorced, have agreed to come to my brother's house to spend the holidays together, as a family. Elmvale, Ontario. There are no hotels here. All of us, my brother's family, my parents, my step-parents, and all my half-brothers and sisters, are going to be packed in at my brother's house. I've decided to bring a camera. My dad Gary and his wife Ona live in Fort McMurray, Alberta. They've been married for 15 years. Ona is our mom away from mom.
Would you like to try some?
No, thank you.
I write poems
Yes.
when I'm really sad and depressed.
Oh, boys. You get depressed about boys.
No, you're not supposed to say that because my parents are going to watch this after, right?
What was that?
A turtle, squish.
Hopping through the forest, picking up the field mice and popping them on the head till they're dead. When down came.
I don't know why I want to kiss you so much.
It's all right.
I really feel like giving you is just. I feel like having like some crazy glue and gluing our cheeks together.
My mom Valerie and her husband Rob live in Sudbury, Ontario. They've also been married 15 years. Rob is our dad away from dad.
You know, I think people are doing what they need to do in marriage, and that is be married 2 or 3 times. You know, so you marry somebody and it doesn't work out, so you marry somebody else.
Mwah.
This is my older brother Mishkin and his wife Melanie. He and Melanie have been married for 3 years. Their house has room for all of us. They have one son, Justice. My older brother Mishkin was the one constant in my life. And yours truly. I'm Alexi. For the duration of the holidays, I'll be married to my camera.
There we go. Beautiful.
It's been 20 years since my mom and dad have slept under the same roof. My parents taught me that there's a reason for everything that happens in life, that life is basically perfect. Otherwise, I would never have had the courage to ask my mom and dad to join in this family project, to make a film about our family, about marriage, about love. You see, I've been asking myself a lot of questions lately. Questions that have made me realize how little I really know about my parents' marriage and what went wrong. I used to think that my parents' divorce had no effect on me. Now I'm not so sure. I was only 3 years old when they split up, so I don't remember them together. I've never seen their wedding photos. I don't remember family meals. All I knew was what I saw. They tried to make the best of it. So, okay, I know how to have a good divorce, but now I need to know how to have a good marriage. I'm digging in the past to find answers for the future.
I think it would be immoral to divorce someone. The morality would be in the defeat.
Are you saying
defeating
I'm immoral?
yourself?
It is defeat.
It's a form of defeat.
Yes, it is.
Failure.
Yes.
It would be too big of a failure.
It is a big failure.
Life is short. You don't get over things like that.
My mom and dad want privacy for the interviews. The house is too noisy with all the kids anyway, so I'll have to do the interviews in the garage. It's probably 10 below in here, so I've rented heaters. I think of it as a sort of isolation tank. By the way, Mom is a theater professor at Laurentian University in Sudbury. Dad teaches painting, sculpture, and media at the college in Fort McMurray. He actually used to make documentaries.
Where are we, in a deep freeze?
I can still breathe, but
What do you think the temperature is in here?
the temperature in here is roughly 1 below.
Maybe about 9 or 10.
You think it's above zero? That snow hasn't melted in the corner.
No, you're right.
No teleprompters for you, Dad. You're expected to have done your homework and.
Right.
I guess you don't want me to edit.
Oh no! Leave the editing to me.
I met your mom at a nightclub when I was singing in a rock and roll band.
He saw me dancing and I saw him singing, and
She wasn't really a woman, she was more an old child.
to say it now is ridiculous, but when I first saw your dad, I remember watching him, and a little voice said, "This is the man you're going to marry."
I invited her to a party, and she didn't tell me she had to be home by, I think it was 11 or something. Anyway, her dad had the police out looking for her.
Tell me about your wedding.
Do I have to?
I'd asked this woman who I thought was a really good friend of ours to prepare her house for our wedding day.
I was at home bickering with my mother. I'd bought myself a wedding dress, a little lace mini dress. It was gorgeous. But it had this little headpiece and veil, and I didn't want to wear the veil. And she insisted I wear the veil. You cannot get married without this veil.
I thought I should go over early. Just, I had this hunch. And the place was a shambles. It was a total mess.
I remember driving to the home where we were being married. My mom and dad in the front seat. I was in the back seat. I think I was in tears.
I had to muster my resources and clean the house.
Well, okay, we arrive and Gary's in a dither.
I finished minutes before everyone came.
My parents had gone and ordered wine for our relatives.
I'd asked specifically that they didn't bring alcohol,
He didn't want to have wine there.
and they brought alcohol.
So he said, okay, finally, it all has to stay in that room. I don't want any in here, here.
I asked if they didn't bring a cake, and they brought a cake.
Obviously, very little consultation went on before this.
My parents didn't have the money to come, so my parents didn't come to the wedding.
My mom wanted him to remove his hat. He wouldn't remove the hat, and they fought. They yelled at each other.
We got married, and all went pretty well until we got into this situation where we had to cut the cake, and I didn't want to cut the cake.
He ended up cutting the cake like...
I didn't want a cake in the first place. As far as I was concerned, it was a ritual that wasn't related to marriage so much as it was related to English fertility rites.
My family all proceeded to get drunk. Oh, it was once my mom was drunk that she attacked your dad about the hat.
You imagine certain things, and we're getting married, etc., etc. It's like doing a video, you imagine it'll go smooth, and it doesn't.
The next day, my dad was in the car crying and wailing and apologizing for my mom and how he should have divorced her years ago. She was a terrible mother. I think you should edit this out.
I had a terrible relationship with her family immediately. Because I had long hair.
Why didn't you just cut it off?
Oh, it's a matter of statement, position, philosophy, arrogance.
It got better from there.
It got better.
I was, interested in changing things, not perpetuating things out of ignorance. So out of ignorance, I wanted to change things.
Why do you think I'm doing this?
You're doing this to try and understand the influences within your heart and soul and psyche that have plunged you recently into dilemmas of the heart.
I think you're doing it because you have a mystery that you need to explore.
There's someone else who could have been here with us this Christmas. We haven't spoken for a while now. I suppose I'm doing this for her, because I want it to work. But I don't know how to make it work. I'm hoping she'll return my call.
We moved to Saskatoon, and in Saskatoon I had a lot of friends, and Valerie didn't have any.
your father was always very gregarious and always inviting people to stay over. And for a while that was nice, but it was like we had every Tom, Dick, and Harry staying over.
In that context, then, she was at a disadvantage. She, in a sense, was always trying to come to terms with my friendships and my relationships with other people.
I ultimately wanted a friend, a pal.
He wasn't a friend?
No, he was at first, but once we hit a more regular lifestyle note.
How did that happen, that you go from being friends?
I don't know. I don't know.
I got a job finally, and I was making some money, but I had to travel. And that meant I had to leave Valerie. And Valerie just, it was terrible for her to have me leave. She'd cry and plead that I wouldn't leave. So I'd be in this terrible bind.
I'm the one who said, I think it's time to have a child. Because I came to the point where I thought, well, what's the use of being married if you don't have children?
Right off the bat, you seem to be an emotional equivalent to Valerie. She was able to really feel engaged by your being. I always felt somewhat aloof to Valerie. I think she was proud of Mishkin, but she was really happy with you.
I remember having great emotional outbursts and wanting your dad to meet me on that ground. Okay, come back at me. If I'm out of line here, come back at me, or somehow meet me there. But he wouldn't. He would go silent and cold, silent.
You can't assume that it was something you did that caused the crack. It may have been something you didn't do that caused the crack.
After you were born, I had postpartum depression, and no one identified it really, and it wasn't really treated as such.
If I advised Valerie to consider something, she would oppose that. But if I didn't advise her, it was also inappropriate. I was in a box. I felt powerless.
I just became more and more isolated, and I began to become very suicidal. And I remember your dad, I think he called our doctor, a family doctor, and said that I was talking about killing myself. And so that's, when there was some recognition that there was something wrong.
I didn't know what to do about it. I was pretty much at a loss.
We should have gotten counseling. And I remember suggesting that to him. And he absolutely could not look at that notion.
Don't assume that once an action occurs, that there is no consequence.
I thought there was enough stuff left, i.e., our spiritual bond, our children, our belief system. There was enough there to put Humpty Dumpty back together again.
Mm-hmm. Our society wants to believe that you can make a wrong choice and go back. Mm-hmm. The fact is that you don't. You can't.
I guess the bottom line is I felt your dad gave up on me.
I'm not crazy about the way Mom makes it sound like it was Dad's fault. And Dad is dropping some pretty big hints that it was Mom's fault.
Okay.
You're fine. Everybody's saying the same thing. There's no guarantees. You
No,
can't know.
you could marry, but you would have to be courageous and make a courageous choice, and then just do it. Even if it made you tremble, and it will.
No, so what's the problem then?
Well, the
wait a
problem
second.
is you're not being courageous.
Courageous. You told me once you wished that your parents would be divorced.
My father was angry a lot, and my mom was mute and silent a lot. And there was always, almost always, a great degree of tension in the home. Another issue was that she was inarticulate. She could not articulate her needs properly or her feelings, really. She cried a lot. I mean, tears were really the only option she had because she wasn't educated.
The old cliche is that women marry their fathers.
Yeah. And I didn't think you know what, I remember being aware of that at some point. And I thought, no, this is the total opposite of my father. Absolutely. Absolutely.
My mom was the prow, and Dad was the tiller. He is the guy at the back steering the thing.
You had asthma, and you were the eldest son on a farm.
Well, it meant I couldn't inherit the farm. It meant they could not pass it on to me. In some ways, I felt like I communicated with the dogs more than I did with my parents.
I remember them being good to each other. When it came to Mishkin and I, they didn't hide things from each other. They never put us in the middle. They never made us choose sides. I remember a lot of conversations taking place in doorways. Dad would come to pick us up from Mom's house, and Mom would tell him about the week gone by. Then it was off to Dad's place for a week. Mishkin and I living out of backpacks. Happy little campers.
Well, I thought it was very important to get you a Swiss Army knife. And I think it's become a trademark. You have to have a Swiss Army knife to be in this family.
My relationship with each of you was probably different because I was the only parent in the home. So I feel like maybe I had a closeness with the two of you that I might not have had there been another parent in the house.
I've always thought that it was handled very well, you know, in terms of us being involved, like the effect on us.
Were you worried about Mishkin and I?
Constantly. There was this real potential that I might never see you guys. And so what I thought would be useful is I'd read somewhere that smell is a big thing in memory. And so I remember bathing with you and sleeping with you, both, up to, I think, when Mishkin was about 7 or 8, and then you guys got your own beds. And the other thing what struck me at that time was how important it would be to tell you stories of myself as a child your age.
It's like he tried to compress a lifetime of fatherhood into those first years. He did everything he could to make sure that if the divorce went badly, my brother and I would remember him.
You don't go into a marriage thinking, someday I'm sure this marriage will fall apart. And in the second marriage, how could you know?
You can't.
So it was a leap of faith.
Of course.
When I was going to marry Rob, I gave myself permission for it to fail. If you don't give yourself permission to fail, you don't give yourself permission to succeed either.
She was both a model of beauty and a model of spirituality.
I was listening to him read his stories, and I thought that this is one of the most honest people I've heard in a long time.
I idealized your dad, loved your mom, she had children. It was a very conflicting time, which is probably why we had such a terribly difficult time getting married.
I knew he was younger, but I didn't know how much younger. Because he hung out with older people and he seemed so sophisticated, I thought maybe he was 3 or 4 years younger than I was.
I was 26, and she was 36.
I thought, okay, this is ridiculous. Valerie, stop it. You've got to, shut this down. This can't go anywhere.
After 7 or 8 years, she was still struggling with that and with the guilt and the shame of it all, of the breakup.
Finally said, well, this is ridiculous. Let's just take the plunge and go.
It just blows my mind that you tackled that setup.
Well, it has to do with love. Yeah, I mean, really, that's I don't think that's. I think that's it. I mean, that's what drives. That's what drives people.
In fact, I had fallen in love in a way like I had with your dad, and I didn't think that was possible. I didn't think it was possible to fall in love like that again.
When my first love broke up with me and I came home and told Mum and Rob started crying too. You know, like he knew how important it was and really empathized. Fundamentally, there really was love in the households.
Sort of from day one, I felt good about it. It felt really important. Even the fact that we kept up amiable relations with your dad and his new wife, from the beginning, all of that just felt really important. The Bertigue-Senek-O'Flanagan connection.
Rob was basically the same age I am now when he took that leap of faith, took the plunge, got married. So I was really hoping he could help me out with some advice. But he's not giving me the answers I was hoping for. I want guarantees, but he did things the hard way. I mean, he faced uncertainty and just said, I do.
We had gone out someplace in the blue truck, and you guys dropped me off. And I said goodnight and was on my way up to my apartment. And you opened the door or the window and you yelled out, "My dad really likes you!" Do you remember that? Valerie and I are very different. Our priorities are different. Our values are different. Our upbringing is different. Probably Rob and I are more alike, you know.
When I thought about marrying Ona, I felt that it would help you and Mishkin, that I could finally model being a husband, and that it would be valuable for you both to have that experience, even if it was late.
Dad's not just a regular guy.
Oh no, your dad's not just a guy. No. Your dad is a complex person, and he has an image of himself that he works on. It must be difficult for him. Like, he gets so lonely for philosophical conversation because it's beyond me, you know? Always has been.
I was hoping they would say they'd learned something from their first marriage, some kind of universal truth that guaranteed them success in their second marriages. But all they had to go on was faith.
Mom took it really hard when Dad got remarried. How'd that make you feel?
I don't think I was mature enough to understand that she would still be affected by your dad's remarriage. And I didn't accept it. So when she was affected, and she was affected, I mean, she went into I think flew into a depression over it. She cried. She was really in a state. I just thought, well, that's the last straw. I mean, that's proof right there that her heart is somewhere else, and I didn't accept that, and I was really, really pissed off about it.
You and Dad kind of agreed to leave the past a closed book.
Absolutely. We didn't agree, we didn't discuss it. It was understood. At least that's how I see it.
It seems like the present has redeemed the past.
I really liked Valerie, you know. She was artsy, she was, you know, beautiful. And I wondered what went wrong there, you know, but I didn't dare ask.
People make choices, and those may take you away from someone, you know, so that can happen.
So who was making those choices?
In Valerie and I's relationship? I don't know. I'd say it was something that you should probably find out on your own, you know.
Well, I am finding out on my own. That's just not answering the question.
No, it's avoiding the question.
Are you a little old to be playing with Lego?
No.
One of the constants in my life, besides Mishkin, was the Lego pile. On the weekends, we'd spend the first 10 hours of the day in our underwear, eating bowl after bowl of cereal. We'd play and play until we had to go to the bathroom so badly we couldn't fit the pieces together. Those were good times.
You gonna sit down?
Oh, yes.
In the interviewer's chair.
Yes, I'm ready.
You and Dad have protected Mishkin and I from the details and pain of your marriage to such a degree that we are not able to learn from it. When you and Dad got divorced, it was like that was year zero.
Yeah.
And then we started from there, and there was no past.
Yeah.
Because you and Dad made it so that there was no past.
Mom already told me that she and Dad were having problems, that she had postpartum depression, and that things were going downhill. But how did it get past the point of no return?
At some point, when you were about 2 or more, a little over 2, I felt numb. It was like I suddenly found myself without feelings for your father. Like numb. I thought, where'd they go? Where'd they go? And I didn't know if I loved him anymore. I didn't know at all. And shortly after that period of time, I found a friend, a man, you know, and this was someone who was kind of an isolated individual like I was. And he would come and visit us in our house, you know, and he wasn't attached to anyone. And, well, this is really odd. I love to go dancing. I still love to dance. And your dad didn't want to go, didn't want to take me, didn't have time, blah, blah, blah. Like we stopped going out and doing fun things together. And we were still so young. Anyway, this guy liked to go out dancing. So your dad said, take Valerie out. We started going out dancing together on the weekends. I mean, it's so weird, eh? Because your dad is the one who suggested it. And, you know, you spend time with someone and you find out about them. And we got to be very, very good friends. Like suddenly, there was the friend I needed. The first time I kissed this person, I came home and I told your dad. I wanted him to know that that had happened. And he just kind of said, well, don't let it happen again. He didn't say how he felt. He didn't say, wait a minute, what's going on? He just said, don't let it happen again. I wanted to be connected to your dad. I wanted it with all my heart and soul, but it wasn't happening. So, and then it happened. I mean, I didn't ask for it. You know, I wasn't looking for it. Mm-hmm. You know, you don't evolve a plan or you don't start, you know, getting a wandering eye or anything like that. It's circumstance, and there it is, and you know, I mean, I'm not trying to make excuses for myself, but things had really, in me, disintegrated a great deal.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever been cheated on?
Not sexually, no, but affairs of the heart, yes.
Okay, totally different. Believe me.
Alexi, here's let me tell you something. There is an enormous difference in men and women.
I know.
When it comes to such things. Because for women, the emotional bond is everything. Mm-hmm. And for men, it's more territorial. Mm-hmm. And it just is. Mm-hmm. Just is.
But one is not better than the other.
Not one is not better than the other, but both are painful.
Yeah,
both are painful.
I agree.
Excruciatingly painful. But that doesn't mean the end.
You feel like he just felt...
I wasn't worth it. Yeah.
I very much doubt he sees it that way.
I never meant to give up on her. I might have given up on myself, but I would never give up on her. Like Dad with Mom, I think he was just hurt. When you can't be with someone, it doesn't mean you stop loving them. It's not that simple.
If you got hit with the end result right off the bat, there would be no doubt, and you would just be completely overwhelmed. You'd be blown away. It's like when your coat unravels, you don't necessarily know that, it's like the cartoon where the nail catches the thread and the guy runs down the road and ends up without his sleeves or something, you know. And you can't go back and knit it together.
Do you have your own Swiss Army knife yet?
I did.
He does?
Oh, more pictures. Looks like you.
It looks like me?
Yeah.
Let's see.
Generally speaking, friends and acquaintances community were quite shocked, and people would say things like, we thought you had the perfect marriage. You know, and you don't know people think you have the perfect marriage until something like this happens.
I was really, really trying to replay my whole marriage and come to terms with whether I had done something or not done something that would have made a difference.
It was only a few months in when I understood. I understood how ultimately hurtful this had been to your dad, how I still loved him, how I knew we could scrape it back together, and that I wanted to do that.
I was invited to Spain to exhibit work, a joyful thing. But on the other hand, I had no idea what was going to happen to my children or my life. And I went on the plane, and as I flew across the Atlantic, they served a wonderful meal, which I filled with tears.
So I had to rebuild. I mean, I literally put myself back together again. I developed more friends. I had dear, dear friends that saw me through that period, to whom I'm forever grateful, indebted.
Maybe in hindsight you see, there was something I could have done to salvage this relationship. I'm not saying...
Or not done.
Sure.
And you can search all you want into the past, and you can come up dry. It's like fishing in a slough. Because in its collapse, it's like trying to reconstruct the interior of someone's lungs on the basis of a burst balloon.
You know, at first, I have to admit, I thought he was just dodging my questions. But now I wonder, it's almost like he's protecting her. Like he's protecting me. And you know, he has every right to keep his feelings private. But here he is, talking to me, trying to answer my questions. They both are. They're trying to give me what they think I need, even though it's obviously no holiday.
I was exploring in his office, which is where all the novels were, and I was just looking for something to read, and I read his journals. The thing that actually really, really stuck with me from his journals was a very short little thing that he wrote about why he divorced Mom. And this wasn't the events that caused it, this was the feelings behind it. And basically what he wrote is that he no longer had any feelings for Mom. I really just kind of went, wow, this, what a terrible thing to have happen. Because, of course, I didn't know the underlying events that had led to that.
The divorce went through in June, the month of June. He was dating another woman. I was seeing another man. He was thinking of marrying this other woman. I was just sort of, I don't know. And then in July or August, like 2 months later, he called me up one day to say, I'm thinking of taking the boys camping up north, and I wonder if you want to come along and see if we can't reconcile.
We thought maybe if we could just get away from everybody with you and Michigan, we could possibly get a better feeling of whether we could, reconcile our differences.
Nothing was resolved, nothing was really talked about. But on the way back to the city, you and Michigan both fell asleep. as we traveled. And then we started talking about it, and talked, and decided we would give it another go. We would remarry, set a date for November.
I really don't remember. You know, if she says we did, we probably did. And at the same time, it's really not clear to me. I don't recall.
I don't know. I was ready to do it, absolutely. No doubt in my mind. This is the right thing to do.
We may have thought we could, you know, try it or something, and I don't know. Maybe we didn't. I can't remember.
Some weeks went by without any communication or any planning or any, okay, we're going to do this, so we've got to do this and that and arrange for this and that. And so your dad became silent again, and finally I called him up to ask him what was happening, and he said, I can't go through with it.
Can't go through with it. What's the point anyway? You try your best and it all just falls apart. What my parents went through is 10 times worse than what I thought. Looking back, the way they parented Mishkin and I was all the more miraculous, since they did so with such disunity to overcome. I begin to appreciate the effort it took for Mom and Dad to put on their socks in the morning, let alone parent us.
Say it was destined. Ideally, a marriage is supposed to last. So what was destined about it?
Well, the obvious one is you and Mishkin, you know, being born out of that marriage. You know, I mean...
How is that obvious?
Obvious because you're such two fine human beings.
In a way, you guys may be starting at zero instead of in a negative zone. I hope that you're further ahead in a way than maybe I was or Valerie was, having a template that wasn't very positive.
Even in a separation and divorce, both parents remain the parents of that child.
Being together all the time in that instability was amazing, basically. Like, it was a lot of fun. And I think that we got to be extraordinarily good friends for brothers separated by close to 3 years.
I often say to your mom that you guys are the most remarkable men that I know.
I talk about this with friends of mine, and I just say, really, Mishkin and Alexei really had it made in the later years, in that they were going back and forth, and each home just loved them to pieces and missed them.
When I told you that I'd broken up with... You cried.
Yeah.
Why?
Because I felt it was a very extreme step. To me, it was like giving up on her.
Like Dad had given up on you.
Yeah, sure.
I like and it would be nifty to have her as a sister-in-law, for you guys to work things out and get married.
Dad also cried when I told him.
No. Why?
He cried because he was so proud of me.
No.
He felt that I'd made a sacrifice for my ideals and beliefs.
You did the right thing.
What's the right thing for me to do now?
Whatever you...
And I just say, really, Mishkin and Alexei really had it made in the later years, in that they were going back and forth, and each home just loved them to pieces and missed them.
When I told you that I'd broken up with... You cried.
Yeah.
Why?
Because I felt it was a very extreme step. To me, it was like giving up on her.
Like Dad had given up on you.
Yeah, sure.
I like and it would be nifty to have her as a sister-in-law, for you guys to work things out and get married.
Dad also cried when I told him.
No. Why?
He cried because he was so proud of me.
No.
He felt that I'd made a sacrifice for my ideals and beliefs.
You did the right thing.
What's the right thing for me to do now?
Whatever you do.
Ideals and principles are worth nothing unless they're grounded in human relationships. What I saw was you truly, deeply, wondrously in love with this young woman who was also truly, deeply, wondrously in love with you.
Like Mom almost took it personally.
Sure. Well, what do you expect?
And that's, again, one of the major differences between your dad and I. He operated on the level of principle, and I operated on the level of empathy.
Well, what do you mean, what do you expect?
Well, she would take it personally.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know that at the time. If you don't want to do this right now, we can do it tomorrow.
No, let's go ahead. Let's get the questions through, and then we can see what happens.
I don't know how to feel my way through this. I feel the way my dad feels, but I also feel the way my mom feels. It's like both of their emotional worlds are in me, and sometimes they don't get along. I live in 2 houses, 2 homes. They must have had a lot more in common before the divorce. As Mom and Dad's marriage fell apart, they fortified themselves in their own moral camps. The marriage sacrificed on the altar of their values. I already asked them why they think I'm doing this, but all this time it never occurred to me to ask Mom and Dad why they agreed to do this. Why they've spent their entire holiday sitting in a freezing garage.
I had a dream in the middle of January this year where a box, a cube, was growing inside of me, and it got so big I had to step aside. And when I did, I recognized that it was a cube and that it was safe to lift the lid. So I did, and I looked inside, and it was filled with something like uranium-235. Very dense, graphite-looking stuff. And I woke up, and I realized this was an angry box that wasn't just full of smoke or something, but was compacted nuclear material. And so I thought, what on earth am I going to do with this thing? But at the same time, I was very excited that it was safe to lift the lid.
Sure.
Well, I love you too, Mom. Of course.
If someone harms you 100,000 times, you forgive them. Because ultimately, that's the kind of love we need to develop for each other. And I mean, I'm not angry at your dad or anything like that. I don't fault him. You know, I mean, I want you to know that. But I think that's what I needed to know. I needed unconditional love. And that's what everybody really needs, ultimately. Not if you're good, I love you. If you're bad, I don't love you. That's what children need. That's what your best friend needs. That's what your spouse needs.
At the beginning I said that I believed that life was basically perfect, that there's a reason for everything. Maybe it was wishful thinking. I desperately wanted for life to be perfect.
Like every time I get something from her in my inbox, it's like total heart-pounding suspense. I pray that your holiday is going well in Elmvale. I'm assuming you're there now and reading this email in your brother's basement. True. Try not to play with too much Lego. It's horrible for your social skills. True. Love.
If there's one thing I've learned this holiday, it's that second chances are very precious. She says she's willing to give it another shot. She says she has faith in me. Suddenly, our days together are up, and I realize that I forgot to spend time with my mom and dad together. I spent so much time interviewing them. Well, I've got one last chance to put them together. Mom and I are going to ride with Dad to the airport. Ona and the kids agreed to go in the other car.
Does this car normally kind of wobble?
I've noticed it just the past week and a half.
When did you buy this car?
Summer.
This summer? Was it very expensive?
2000.
That's quite inexpensive, really.
Yes.
What year is it?
A 90.
10 years old, eh? I miss the Suburban.
You miss your fancy Suburban.
I do.
I think I know what my mom and dad have been up to. I think I know why they gave up their entire holiday to help me make this film. They're being parents. They give me whatever they think I need in order to make my way in the world.
Yeah, I'm so tired.
Mom gave me her tears. Dad even gave me his last hours in Elmvale, the ride to the airport. This holiday, they gave me their stories, their trust, their love. And what they told me is that I am the perfect divorce. That is, it lives in my brother and me. They couldn't have the perfect marriage, so they tried to build the perfect divorce in us. It is in us that their emotional worlds coexist. To be sure, their separation lives inside of me, but so does their union. There's ambiguity, there's shades of gray. But their union lives, if only Mishkin and I can do a little bit better than they did. And our children do a little bit better than us. But for now, Mishkin and I are living symbols of the love I think they still feel for each other. The love that would allow them to spend their holidays together.
You're welcome.
The evolving love of a mother and a father.